Hey everybody, hope you're doing well. I'm gonna be hanging out, painting this Gundam. So, if you're here for that, hello. We're currently running a challenge up on Patreon. So if you're into that sort of thing, we have a compositional challenge running on our Discord. $5 a month, hang out, download videos, watch, hundreds of hours of tutorial stuff, tons of high resolution print things, whatever you like. Basically years of content exists, and I'm being normal on there again, so yeah, come hang out. Anyway, that challenge is running for 2 months, so we just started. It's a compositional challenge. One's graphic design style, and one of them is a more traditional illustration style. You gotta do 2 illustrations within 2 months. Okay, so this one here that I'm working on, I'm trying to basically do a companion piece to this old one that I have here with Char, the red comet. So basically this one here will be, it'll be this view. So they'll just basically be flips of each other. It should be cool. I just wanted to make sure that I finally did this one because it's something that I've had on the back burner for a long time. So what I'm going to try and get done tonight is some start to the painting of the actual Gundam in the back. So yeah. You know what? I probably should have... You know what? Let me... let me turn my screen off for a second so you don't see my NDA stuff. I probably should have saved this and done that off stream. Let me do that. The problem I always run into is I have about 1 million work files open. I'm always doing like a handful of things alongside my personal and Patreon art. Alright.
Let's find out.
Hey, thanks Jim Bob. Seeing you have that Char painting printed up and framed. Thank you. I think my computer's just like, why are you trying to stream and open up a gigantic file at the same time? Here we go. But yeah, I'm doing good tonight. Got a lot of stuff that I want to work on. Want to make a bunch of progress on this painting, so I'm gonna do the same thing that I always do in these. I'll step in and out of chat. I'll answer questions here and there, and feel free to do at Dave Raposa so that I can actually see it, your question, because otherwise I might miss it. And every now and then I'll just pop over, answer some stuff, and then get back to painting. And I just so happened to be listening to this. Check that out. How weird is that? There's this Gundam playlist that has my Gundam playlist, Castlevania playlist that has my art up in it. I thought that was weird. That's good. It's like one of those Castlevania workout playlists. All right.
killing my boy. Lisa, I'm killing our boy. We painted this room. We made these toys. It's our boy, Lisa.
Julian says, let me get this straight. You work full-time as an AD at a studio. You're doing freelance and Patreon content. How? I'm not a AD at the studio. I'm the lead artist. And I work remotely. I work at the moment I work for them 3 days a week. And then the other well, I'll have to tell you later because a lot of the stuff that I'm doing at the moment isn't public. But I have a current job that runs for all my freelance, and then I take on other projects here and there. So on Monday and Tuesday, I work on a variety of things, like Patreon content. I work on other freelance projects, so on and so forth. I mean, I'm pretty quick, so I'm not really overworking myself too much at the moment. But there was a whole period of time where I was definitely overworking myself for like whatever it was, like 3 years. Which if you ask me then, you're like, how do you manage to do that? It's like, well, you wake up, you start work at a certain hour, like 10 a.m. is usually when I like really get rolling, and then I work until 4, and then I jump back into work after the kids go to sleep, and then work until midnight. It wasn't my favorite. Vile, hey Dave, just got Krita, was wondering if you have any starting tips in regard to the layout and settings, etc. I know you have the default Chrome brushes, right? Yeah, man. Yeah, I just use those brushes for painting things up. I mean, rendering values quick. It feels like I'm sculpting forms, so it's a different way of painting as opposed to other programs, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's certain things you can do. You can play with like your pressure sensitivity with the brushes in this program. I honestly can't remember if I did that. I may have. Other than that, you can set like a favorites folder for brushes, and I think that's about as far as I got in organizing my Krita setup. Other than, honestly, at this point, I cannot remember what the stock Krita looks like. I don't know if I did anything special. I don't know if your screen looks way different than mine. But all of that stuff is fairly simple. I honestly just watched like a couple YouTube tutorials, and that was it. I gotta try the watercolor brushes in Krita. They feel really good. I have tried them. I really like them. Yeah, I mean, I just really stick to this brush for the most part, but if I'm doing other styles, I tend to play with other things as well. Ben Nissan's asking, it just got Clip Studio to try out, and I want to try out some of the techniques from the Patreon. Just wondering, have you also tried Rebel? It has some pretty sweet engine to mimic traditional media. Yeah, I have that. I really love it. I mean, I don't do a ton of like straight up painting and drawing in there. I honestly haven't taken the time to just go in that program from scratch. But from what I've used of it, it's very good. And one of the great things about it, as far as like how I use it, is I can pop into it and just do like finishing touches on a painting that otherwise doesn't look traditional and give it like a very quick like once over and make it look like I painted it. I like that. I like doing the I mean, honestly, just using like a soft light layer with one of the traditional oil brushes that leaves like the raised brush strokes that catch light to look like an actual traditional painting with paint on top. Like sometimes I'll just do that over like central focal points within an image if I want the traditional feel, and that feels really good. Like it's, you know, like even if I didn't do a full painting in that, that's enough to make it feel nice. I'm gonna go grab my Gundam. So I'm gonna use this dude to reference every so often. I have to move some stuff. I'm gonna set him up next to my desk. I don't really use this thing for reference because it honestly, like I had to kind of fudge some stuff on this to get the angle to work. So my Gundam here in this painting isn't accurate, or at least not like 100%. But you know, who gives a shit? As long as it looks like it and feels like it, then we're good. Alright, I'm gonna paint for a bit, so if I don't see your question right away, that's why. Because otherwise I could just answer questions all night and get nothing done. Alright, I was trying to figure out, I was like, why did I grab this guy? Because of this line. Here we go. Couldn't remember if that was a intentional line or not. I'll tell you one trick that I always forget to mention on here. A really nice way to get the fine inking lines in Krita with this brush. I'm sure you could fiddle with like the actual brush settings and get something similar. I'm just not, you know, I'm not the smartest dude in the world. I work on files in Krita at about 450 DPI, so that the tip of the, so I can get very thin and sharp brush strokes. You know, I'm also telling you this so that I remember to do it again, because sometimes I'll forget that that's something I do. And then I'll be like, why does this fucking brush not work? And then I'm like, oh right, that's what I was doing. I have to kind of like move away from the monitor to then look at this Gundam because it's so dark in here that I can't see the Gundam's face. Trying to readjust. I can actually see what I'm looking at. I gotta move away from this bright ass screen. Last question, would you consider making a Patreon video for freelancers on the different kinds of contracts, like contracts we would make to give to clients? I mean, I wish. I never make my own contracts. I mostly just go over contracts with clients. And if there's ever anything that's like stand out, like just bad practices or something like that, or just some wording in the contract I don't like, I just talk to them about it and they can make revisions if they want. But that's about the most of it. I don't really do my own contracts too much. I think that's also, you know, mostly because I work for pretty big clients, so everything's generally standardized. The most I'll ask for, and it, you know, it just comes down to like negotiating stuff, is like print right stuff, or, you know, like if I'm going to do this job for you, you know, I get this rate and I want to negotiate the rights to do my own limited run of prints. Okay, this thing pops out a little bit. So when I initially worked on this sketch, well, I call it a sketch, it's more like inks. When I initially worked on the inks of this Gundam, you know, like everything outside of what I just did, painting wise, that whole section, it was all black, but I adjust the values and things so that I lighten it all. I can stay in a kind of mid-tone value range, and I like to stay in that mid-tone value range and then render in there and work my way to really deep shadows. That's why it looks like this. I'm just controlling my values. I don't want to blow out my values and have there be like super harsh whites and blacks and all that, because it's harder to come back from that.
When you get back to whatever steaming underworld shithole you came from, you tell them there are still Belmonts up here.
too much. No, I don't know what was happening. That's why I was laughing a bit. No, Kim, I didn't see your question. I'm really happy with this approach. This feels really good. I think I'm gonna do this from now on. I was always doing like a version of this, but this feels very much like I'm painting with oils. It's nice. Oh, are you family with rats in the Air Force? No, I'm not, unfortunately. I mean, I appreciate the question. Am I familiar with it? Oh, he said, "Am I family?" Yeah, I'm familiar. Ben Nissen says, if you're comfortable talking about it, I've tried mushrooms before at different amounts and strengths. How much did you each do to gain the results you got from your trips? Like, I think just under 3 grams or something. It was pretty transformative. If anybody's listening to this and they're like, what are you talking about, mushrooms? I talked about that last time, that I had like a pretty transformative experience doing that. Cured a lot of my, I mean, it's weird to say it, it cured a lot of my crazy like OCD tendencies, which I've heard about, but it's one of those things where, like, you hear it, it sounds too good to be true, and then I did it and now I feel like infinitely better. I hope it's like a permanent thing. I don't know. Maybe I'll have to re-up every few months or something. But it's pretty unbelievable. I honestly have a hard time believing that it's real. But all my weird anxiety tics that I like have had for my whole life, they're crazily dumbed down now. And I was at a point where I was like, I guess I'm just gonna live with this for the rest of my life. Like, I don't know how to stop it.
Of course I know you. Finding things and recognizing
But my goodness, it feels great to be free of that shit for like the first time in 30 years. I don't know.
Are you dictating your fucking obituary to me, Belmont?
It's time to give this place back to people who know how to build things. You and me, we're just killers of history. It's time for us to go.
And who's going to make me go? You? With your bit of string in your hand?
Probably not.
what kind of anxiety tics that I have. Lots of like normal stuff, you know, where you like tap your foot all the time and whatever, but like then weird shit, like just I try so hard not to like rip out hair, like just so many things like that. I just couldn't control it. Like I wouldn't have a mind that it was even happening, and then it would just happen. It was driving me nuts. So yeah, that was happening since I was in like, I don't know, grade school, and now it's just gone. I have no desire to do that. No desire to just like eat out of anxiety. Like I was like gaining weight and things. Just I had such a hard time controlling myself, and then I just had that trip, and it was like I speed ran fucking therapy. Like I don't know. I really don't know. The best way I can explain it is that it felt like I got my brain washed. Like I had a factory reset or something. It's pretty unbelievable. Yeah, grinding teeth. Like mine is like like if I don't pay attention, like I'll chew on my tongue even. Like just weird shit. But now that's just gone. Like it's really remarkable. I'm not like a big drug guy or anything. This is the first time I ever did mushrooms, but yeah, pretty unbelievable. I totally get it. I totally get why people with like PTSD and all that have found that they have good results from doing it.
What on earth is that everything?
I don't believe they hid it. It's the Morning Star.
Yeah, I had some social anxiety stuff, which is very weird because I'm not socially awkward at all. Like I have no problem. Like if you want me to talk in front of a large group, it doesn't bug me in the least. But like it's more like the lead up to doing it will get me in a wild frenzy of doing all those anxious things I just mentioned. But I don't think it would anymore. I honestly think it helped me so much that I'm pretty much good right now. Thanks, Riley. Yeah, Ben, it is like blowing the dust off your brain. That's a good way of putting it. It's real bizarre. John Doe says, do you have a stance on AI art and it potentially replacing smaller artists? Yeah, I think it's ridiculous. It's literally the sorry, these stupid parts where they talk. all right, guys, shut up. Yeah, I think like the worst part about AI art is that it doesn't replace me, but it's definitely going to have a major effect on up and coming artists, because if you take away the jobs that basically AI is going to supplant or whatever, it's like that's all the entry level shit, and you need to have those jobs in order to get some momentum. And without those jobs, you don't have artists that grow into whoever they become. So yeah, it's the worst. It's the worst side effect of it. And then, you know, it's like the snake eating its own tail. It's like AI needs human beings in order to make new styles and different things. So if you're going to make it so a potential generation of artists are just fucked out of entry-level jobs, then there goes your whole, you know, Matrix feeding tube to the machines. Like, it's such a stupid idea. Yeah, it's very dumb. I just hope that something happens with legislation and, you know, they make it so there's really no way to actually use that work. Yeah, we can't. In the U.S., that could happen, and in different countries maybe, but like we're not going to be able to control if they just do that in China. You know, like there's not a lot we can do. That's kind of the same thing that always happened, where if your work gets stolen in another country like that, it's like good luck. Like one of the things that happened to me was I did a Masters of the Universe like He-Man painting, but I mean Skeletor painting, and it got used on the Blu-ray release of the old 80s movie Masters of the Universe. Like they re-released the movie, and I can't remember what country it was that used my artwork in their re-release, but basically whatever company stole my stuff and used it, they weren't from the States, and I couldn't really do anything about it. The only thing I did was I just posted online about it. I was like, well, they took my work and used it on a cover and didn't compensate me at all. Which is a funny thing, because people are always like, but you did fan art, so what did you expect? But that's not, you know, I think enough people know now that that's not the case. It's like you can't just be like, oh, you're a cosplayer who made this outfit and did all this stuff. Like I can just steal all your likeness and images and use it wherever I want because I'm the company you made cosplay of. It's like, yeah, that's not how it works. Like you still have to ask the person. And it's very detrimental for you to then steal something from whoever that creator is and try to pass it off as your own thing. It's bad for your PR or whatever. It's, you know, you got to support your community that supports you. Blah, blah, blah. But, yeah, that happened to me, and it was long enough ago where people didn't really give a shit. It got on, like, IGN, I think, and a couple other things. Like, it spread around a bit, but it was that whole, like, what did you expect argument over and over again, and I was like, all right. And then I looked into, like, what it would actually take to do anything about it, and I was like, well, this isn't worth my time. So, basically all I'm saying is that if your stuff gets stolen or replicated or whatever, even if, like, AI legislation goes through, if it's in a country like China, hey, nothing you can do about it. Not really. You can make a stink about it online. That's about it. But that stuff happens to me so much that I just had to stop caring. Like, if it's a big enough company, I'll still say something. But it was, you know, like once I started, especially once I started doing Patreon, and I was doing like a bunch of fan art stuff, because I just like doing it. I like having the opportunity to do this stuff, and through Patreon, it was just people paying me month to month to be able to do these paintings and put it out there for people. And I had a bunch of artwork from a bunch of different things, and then it just ended up spreading around online, and inevitably those get on like just about every single print site you can imagine, and people just steal your stuff. And like, if I wanted to do anything about that, it would take me pretty much all day, every day. Like, that would be my job, is just going around and saying, hey, that's stolen, take it down. It's just ridiculous. There's nothing I can do about it. Varun says, hey Dave, would you please answer this question for me? Do you think scribbling, especially from imagination, teaches artists bad drawing habits? If that's all you do, maybe. But I would say it's really just about making sure that you supplement all that work with studies and things. You know, you got to be doing a mixture of like work from your head and then work from things that are going to help you grow. You should never just completely sacrifice one thing for another. You don't want to get soft in either area. I mean, balance is everything. Oh man, I'm using this approach for everything from now on. Just do the ink drawing and paint on top of the inks. Don't try to redraw it at all, because so much of that texture comes through. It looks nice. What part of the Gundam did you cheat? Nothing really. I mean, it's pretty much just the actual Gundam. The only stuff that I fudged on a little bit was the angles. So like if you actually had the model of this Gundam at this angle, it wouldn't look exactly like this. You wouldn't see the eye the same way. I just changed some things to serve my illustration. And that's something I tell everybody to do. You know, like even if you're working for a client, like if the model that they have isn't conducive with the illustration that they really want you to be able to do, then just adjust it slightly so that it's clearly that model, but it doesn't need to be like 100% accurate. It's the same thing with like perspective stuff. It's like you can play with perspective to create, to put like an emphasis on an emotion or speed or feeling or whatever. It's like you don't really need to do things like one for one perfect. Like that's not the point, and it's not how you create really cool artwork that feels like a person did it. You can bend and break the rules just as long as it feels good and it still feels accurate. It's sort of like how in movies, like if you watched like Pacific Rim or something, when like one of my favorite examples of that was the shot where I forget the dude's name, but his glasses fly off in this area, and it like flies super close to the camera, and the glasses are on the ground, and he's on his hands and knees looking for them, and there's basically like this perspective trick in the shot where the glasses aren't actually like if it were a real shot from that angle, the glasses wouldn't be as big as they are. So to make it feel like you were looking from the perspective of these glasses up at the person looking for them, they had to make giant glasses. And it's just, it's an illusion, but it feels right. Like you wouldn't ever look at that scene and be like, oh, that's wrong. Have you ever played Hideo Kojima's Zone of the Enders game? Yeah. It's rules. How do you layer your colors on top of this? Specific layer mode or just literally paint over? Right now I'm just painting over. This is all just me painting directly on top. Any professional criteria for illustration or concept art portfolio? Also, how do you recover from a failed portfolio piece? You just keep making stuff. I make so much shit. I make new art constantly. The biggest thing, the only failure you can really have, in my opinion, is that you let yourself feel like a failure and just go, oh man, that fucked up, and like dwell on it. Like don't do that. Just next thing. Always the next thing. Like you're not an artist so that you can create one thing of art and go, I did it. Now time to work for somebody. It's like you just keep making things because that's what you would do even if you didn't have a job. You know, you just keep on making stuff over and over. You get better and better because that's just the natural state of things. If you just keep on trying and you keep pushing and you seek growth and you love the whole journey of doing art, the struggle of it's the best part to me. It's like, I don't care about being the best artist in the world. It doesn't matter to me at all. I just want to improve myself. I don't need to be Craig Mullins. I don't need to be anybody. I just want, like, even like the things that I want to be, like, are people that I look up to. Like, it's just my own personal taste. Whether or not that's something that appeals to everybody doesn't concern me in the least. I don't give a shit. Just don't worry about it. It's like, just keep making stuff. I've come to the end of artwork that I've done for people and been slightly disappointed with the results, but I just keep going. I just keep making stuff. Because I love doing it. And I love the feeling of passing some goalpost and being like, oh, yes, I did something. But then I don't celebrate, you know? I don't like sit there and stare at the painting and go like, how will I ever climb that mountain again and accomplish that? I don't even bother. I just keep moving. You know, it's just art. It's just another thing I did, and if I feel good about it, I feel good about it. If it didn't work out, it didn't work out, and I learned something from that. And growth. Is there a particular IP that I'd want to work on next? Vampire Hunter D, Guyver. Honestly, like some sort of quasi-realistic anime would be fun. Gundam could be fun. Like the way I'm painting this Gundam right now, like if you asked me to do like Appleseed or something like that, that would be cool. What do I think so far of all the compositional challenge sketches? How are you planning on reviewing all the work? Well, I'm going to go through the finals. You know, obviously at the end of this challenge. But so far, I've only looked at the initial stuff. I try to stay in the dark as much as possible with the challenges because I want to be surprised. But this one's so long that I'm definitely going to step in and out of the Discord and look over people's work. I don't like to offer any words of advice through the composition, you know, not through the composition, but through any challenge, because I just would think that would be unfair if I couldn't do that for everybody, and I also don't want to, you know, insert my opinion until the very end. I just want to see what you can do right now with your skill set. That's my main focus with the challenges. See what you come up with. I have to tell you, as an artist, one of my bigger fears would be painting stuff like Gundams back in the day. Like that would have been something that, you know, if I were given that type of job, I'd be like, holy shit, all the detail, everything. That's gonna suck. But after having done a bunch of paintings, I've been working for a really long time, I'm loving this. It's so much fun to just take on a challenge and try something, you know, just a bit refreshing from the more fantasy work that I've been doing a lot of lately. Like just getting to step into the world and do some little like sci-fi 80s feeling artwork. Oh, this is like a little vacation for me. This just makes me very happy. Super enjoyable. It's like the same way I felt about drawing cars in comics or, you know, anything like that. Oh, I can't wait to drop colors on this once it's all in place. I feel pretty good about it so far. So I feel like just a little bit of color going in here is gonna feel very nice. Did I attend any Lightbox conventions, and do I plan to? I mean, that would be fun. I haven't yet. But I've just had a couple years stretch of just work and saving money, so all of those things are possibilities in the future. I just haven't considered anything yet. I know I've been saying this, but painting's so much fun. Ridiculous. It's gonna sound like a cop-out, Diggs, who was asking how do I deal with a lack of motivation, but I honestly, I never have that. There are on and off days. Like there's certain days where I'm flying through stuff, and days where I'm just slightly slower. But I treat art like a job a lot of the time, because that is a job for me, and I just don't have off days because I can't. You know, I got a family, I gotta make an income. I never take a day off for just to, you know, take a breather or whatever. I just never do. So it's like I always make myself work no matter how I'm feeling. And I do something, you know, no matter what. You know, Kim's in the chat. She can attest to off days, lack of motivation for me. She sees it all. Kim basically just tells everybody, and she was doing it last night, that they should not do what I do. Not because she doesn't want me to do it, because she just knows that I can be a little crazy. A little obsessive. Yeah, Kim and I are always doing things. Nick asks, I tried my hand at this method of slowly building up a piece from mid-tones to darkest dark, but it was a very slow process. Is there anything that you should do to speed up that transition? I don't know. I mean, anything I've ever done to try and speed things up has always made an image worse, unfortunately. Yeah, I find that if I spend a lot of time on an approach, and I spend a lot of time on that approach, you know, every time I always give myself that space to just do it the right way, not the expedient way, then over time I just get faster at it. So it might start slow, and the initial few paintings that I do that way, you know, the build-up might be slow, but the end results are so much better that I don't see another way that's good for me personally. This is the way that I like the most. Would I say I have a lot of discipline? I mean, yeah, but it's also because I genuinely like what I do. And I mean, like, discipline comes into play when it's like you'd rather do something else. So you still have to force yourself to just sit down and do the work. I also just have the feeling that there's so many other things I could be doing that are much worse than this, that it's like, if I can't make myself sit and draw a picture of a robot, then, you know, there's other people out there that are pushing themselves to go to jobs that they completely hate and they go there every day. It's like, what do I have to complain about? I can sit there. I can keep doing this stuff constantly. I have no trouble. Like, I would never ever complain about this stuff. The stuff that you complain about, or anything that I have in the past, is all related to like when I started, and I felt very much like, holy shit, this is a long road to getting good. Like, oh no, I'm gonna be doing this forever. But that just motivated me more to just rip the band-aid off and just get good as fast as possible. In your char process video, you've stated that one very important part of your process is lines. For me, lines is the longest and most stressful part. Any tips for drawing digitally? Find an approach that is the most intuitive for you. For me, at the moment, that's this Krita approach. Before that, I really liked drawing in Clip Studio, and then I had a couple of drawing brushes that were okay in Photoshop, but Krita and Clip Studio were always my go-tos for that kind of thing. But practice makes perfect, you know? It's just the same old shit everybody says. You just stick with it, and as you do it, if you're disciplined and you do it every day, you know, you get faster and faster. You know, not saying it's an easy thing to do. You just have to stick with it. Hey, progress. Oh, hey, Sean, what's up? I work with Sean on the game that I've been doing for the past few years. Yeah, for sure, guy. How can a nobody starting out in the industry find a studio job? Who does he contact? Where can he find people to contact? I apologize for the questions. I really want to pick your brain. Of course. You know, that's one we got a bunch, but you essentially just find everybody that you want to work for on social media, really. You know, you have more access to people right now than you ever had in history, really. I'm like, if you can't do it now, then I don't know when you can do it. This is like the best time for that. You want to target a place, I guess, that you would like to work at, and then seek out those ADs, contact them or anybody that's involved, and ask what's the most appropriate place to submit a portfolio, and send it over there. And you know, as you submit the portfolio, ask, if they say no, ask, like, is there anything I could do to have a better chance if I resubmit, and maybe get some feedback and have a better idea what they're looking for, and go from there, really. But back when I started, there was like, you know, MySpace. It's not like art directors were on MySpace, and there wasn't like a whole LinkedIn community and shit. It's like you just had to find a website and post your artwork and say you're looking for work and pray to God that anybody hired you to do anything. But I get it though. Sometimes it's like there's so many options and so much availability in front of you. You're like, oh, I could do any number of these things to get noticed, and you kind of don't do anything when you have too many options. I assume you're going to add color layers on top of the Gundam. What's the benefit of having those slight color changes in the midtones and values? Oh, I can just really control my lighting and build towards darker shadows so that I don't kind of overwhelm it and immediately go to like a very high contrast. And by working this way, I can continually like refine my painting and add in details and things. It was my favorite. Like the reason I started doing this is it was my favorite way to do like watercolor paintings. Was just almost working like more opaque in the watercolor. But I really like building my values over time. So that's why I started really doing it digitally, because I was like, oh, okay, I find the most comfort in doing it that way, and it's the most enjoyable for me when I work that way traditionally. So I should try and find a way to do that digitally. And it's more or less just kind of finding like how your brain works through all these paint processes. You know, whatever works best for you. Some people work best from shadow. I could never really get a handle on that. I love slowly building my values from a drawing. Even if like there was some faster way of doing it or something, I just have fun doing this. And I like the way the results end up looking once I do add color. More pronounced values and things. Almost forgot that I should be saving this as I go. I don't want to be in the middle of this and then have my file vanish. So I'm looking at my Gundam model here. And again, I'm not looking at the model to copy the model. I'm just looking at where are the seams? What does that shape look like? But I didn't pose it like this because like I said earlier, I made up a lot of the details in here. Well, not made up, but as far as how they're portrayed in this angle, this isn't how they would look exactly if I went for one for one. Thanks for hanging out, Julian. So you're just drawing and rendering your values. Any smudging too? No, no smudging here. Just painting. If this were like a more organic form, then maybe I'd be doing a little bit of that, but I'm not really worried about it when I'm painting a Gundam. Lots of flat planes and things. Thanks, Diggs. Could you talk about how and if you're thinking about the perspective when it comes to big boxy robots like this guy? I mean, I never map it out. Like, I'm not going in and doing like perspective lines and trying to fit it in the space correctly. It's more or less like a feeling. If I were doing something very distorted, like a fisheye type of situation or something like that, then maybe I would do some perspective just to make sure that things didn't get out of control and wonky. But for this, it's fairly straightforward action pose. And I don't really care about the Gundam looking absolutely perfect. It doesn't matter to me. As long as it feels good, that's all I care about. Hey, Dan. I'm probably not going to be on for much longer. Just a little bit. I don't mean to be inappropriate, but seeing as how we are in a loneliness epidemic and incels are still a thing on the internet, I'd like to know how you build relationships with women. Sorry to laugh at that. I just wasn't expecting it. I mean, you got to get out and do things. You got to, like, don't make it such a focus. Like, don't have it be like something that you're kind of desperate over or like feeling like total shit over. Just make sure that you are aware that you need to go out and be around people. Make that a priority in yourself. But don't make it like an obsession of like, oh my God, if I don't do this by this time, I'm gonna be a fucking loser and I'm gonna be alone. It's like, don't do that. Don't be like, oh, I'm an incel, I'm a piece of shit, or, you know, just feel bad about yourself. Like, that's only gonna make it worse. I would say go out and work on yourself first and foremost. Like, get out in the world. Go to a gym, go be around people, get a hobby that involves others, and just make sure that you're in groups, you have exposure to the world. I think like the worst thing you can do is just kind of sit at home and just, you know, expect that something's going to come to you and you're going to have this dream moment where everything lines up perfectly for you and you get everything you want. Like, just make those things happen for yourself by being in the places where that's a possibility. You know, get out of your comfort zone and talk to people and have awkward interactions. It's the same thing as doing art. You know, it's like, what's the key to getting better? It's going out and failing. It's like you need to fail and fail and fail until you succeed. And if you can have the courage to go out and fail socially over and over, if that's a fear of yours, then the more exposure you have to that failure, the more you realize that it's not a big deal. The more you realize that all that shit is just in your head. And, you know, the worst thing you can think is like, oh, everybody's thinking about me. Everybody's judging me. No, they're not. Nobody's thinking about you. You know, nobody cares. It's on you. It's like, go out there and make these things happen for yourself. Have uncomfortable conversations. Put yourself out there. That's the best you can do. And you have to, you know, care about yourself. You got to love yourself so that other people can be attracted to you in that way, that you have some confidence. You can carry your person and not be awkward. But I mean, really, it's just about exposure, experience, like anything else. If you're like, but I'm awkward at conversation or just talking to a stranger, then talk to strangers. Talk to strangers all the time and just eat shit. Have it be bad and terrible for a while. Yes, color will be going on to this Gundam for sure. I mean, it's not, I wouldn't say it's sad that people don't necessarily care about you. It's just a problem with our egos that we assume that everybody cares. If you could get out of your own way, if you could get out of your ego's way and be like, you know, who cares? Like, I think even in terms of, like, forget social settings, even in settings that aren't social at all. Like, look at people on the internet who are artists in our space who think like, oh, I can't try that style because, well, you know, what if I deviate so far from who people already know I am, and then, you know, I stopped getting work, or, you know, I couldn't do this comic because that's against my perceived brand, or all this other bullshit. It's like, no, stop thinking that anybody cares what you're doing. They do not. They do not. I promise you, they're not thinking about you. Like, you, like, even in your best moments, like look at me. Like, I have, you know, what a lot of people would aim for like social media reach, right? Like, I think between my Instagram and Twitter, I have like close to 800,000 followers or whatever. Like, but really, do you know what that is? Like, my artwork getting posted equates to a, you know, at best, a billboard on the highway when you're going 60 miles an hour. It's like, yeah, you saw it, but that's not where you were going. And like, you saw it for a second when you were scrolling by. It's like, you gotta have some, you gotta be humble and just be like, it's more important that I do stuff for me and care about myself than give a shit about what anybody might potentially think for half a second about what I'm doing. Just get out of your own, just get out of the way of yourself and do things and try stuff and take a chance. Because you'll realize what I'm telling you is true, but hopefully not before it's too late. Because really, it doesn't matter. I promise you it doesn't matter. Nobody's going to remember the times you failed, because when you succeed and you're great, that's going to be the thing that stands out. That's going to be the thing that's working for you and everybody knows you for. Nobody remembers all the times the only reason people remember the times I painted horny kangaroo girls is because I tell you about it, because I think it's funny that it happened to me. Who cares? Ville's asking, how did you set up your brush to turn into an eraser in Krita like you do in Clip Studio? I can't remember the button for it, but literally if you just press eraser in Clip right here, it'll just turn your brush into an eraser. So I just have a button on my little controller that I use that toggles on and off, specifically in Krita, the eraser button. You know, when you press the eraser button again, it automatically pops you back into your brush. Oh, this is going to be so satisfying when I add the actual colors to this that I want to add. Even if I just kind of mess around right now with it. Yeah, that's gonna be fun. How do I plan my work? I usually do I usually do an initial thumbnail, so something that's like, you know, a sketch on paper, and then from there I refine, and well, there's like a Doodle Brush and like Clip Studio or something in Photoshop maybe. And then after that, I refine everything in Krita with like an ink drawing. I'll show you that one. So like, just as an example, this is the ink drawing I did for the Gundam. So if you look at that up close, you can kind of get an idea. And I adjusted the colors. Like this used to be like a black, just like grayscale ink drawing. And then on top of that, I was just doing the painting that you saw. So this refinement layer. Yeah. And then just slowly build everything up. Okay, I'm gonna hop off of here in like a couple minutes. If there's any last minute questions, anything you want to ask, feel free to drop it in the chat. I'll just say again, if you want to help support, you can jump on the Patreon. I got a link in the description below. And we have a Discord. It's $5 a month. You get access to literally years of content, hundreds of hours of videos, tutorials, whatever, like just lots and lots of stuff. High-res files you can print yourself, full layered PSDs you can flip through to see process, and just a number of things that I've done. But we have a challenge going on right now for any artist that wants to hop in on the Discord. If you're a member of the Patreon, we have a compositional challenge that's running for 2 months where you do 2 separate illustrations. But that'll run through the holidays. That'll be a lot of fun to go through, see everybody's work. But this was good. I felt like I actually made a ton of progress this stream. Dave, do you believe in should and shouldn't in art? I believe that I've been having a lot of fun not caring about rules. I mean, there's a version of that I believe in as far as like fundamentals that just universally apply in terms of how things read or how things sit in a composition. Like those sort of things are pretty universal. You know, like they always work, and if like you have tangents throughout your piece, things like that are just, you know, maybe that's not what you're talking about, but like shitty tangents will throw off an image. But if you're talking about content, then no, I don't believe in that. I think you just do whatever you want. And also, it's all dependent on like what you're doing this for. Like a lot of people don't do art just to have like a full career in art. Like that's not a lot of people's idea of what they want to do. They just want to make stuff. They have a job and then they do art as a hobby and they enjoy that. If that's all you do, then yeah, like why would you care, you know? And like don't let everything hold you back. Stupid rules. Like if you feel like you're like, oh, I can't do this because I'm like, I talk about that with that get out of your own way sort of thing. It's like if you have an idea, something you want to do, and you feel like you hold yourself back because you think that there are weird rules in your industry that basically would hurt you in some way if you did it, then yeah, I don't believe in that. I think that's silly. And my wife is right in the chat. My favorite ice cream is Cookie Two-Step. I mean, I don't know. There's been some good ice creams that have come about. Oh yeah, and subscribe to the channel if you want to, you know, catch the next stream. It'll be next Thursday, same time, 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We're over here out in Denver, Colorado. Yeah, join the Discord. Discord's great. Lore asks, do you design composition with a theme or philosophy in mind for a specific subject you're painting? Yeah, I'll go in with an idea. Like for this one, I was thinking of almost like arcade versus screens. That was my initial idea for this Gundam one. So this is the other one that I did. That's the companion piece to the one I'm currently working on. This is older, but I just wanted to, do the other side of it, even if I'm late. But yeah, like I imagine, like in my head, I'm envisioning the red comet in charge is kind of like going across the screen and like locking in place with like a ching or whatever, like the verses blah 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 on the screen. Like I'm imagining the like old school like PS1 like Gundam versus games. So that was the idea with these, was having it be like a splash screen with some like little graphic elements in the back of like space and lasers and whatnot. And that's what this is. This one is the actual orientation of this is this, so they're gonna be back and forth. So they'll go together. Set that up in Dream. Yeah, I know, right? I could very easily. So when I design with a theme or philosophy, how does that transfer to tangible lines? I mean, for me, when in terms of like executing a composition, it comes down to the process. Like if I start small, something that's not very intimidating, like a little tiny, like a sketch that's literally this big in my sketchbook, and I have a picture in my head, sort of what I would like for my illustration to look like. So hopefully I'm inspired to do something. And that initial inspiration will then lead me to do something like this. And I go kind of step by step. I try to make the steps of what I'm doing as... Like, I try to remove all intimidation from it. So, like, if you feel... Like, for me, I do a lot of humongous compositions. And you could look at something like that and be like totally overwhelmed. Like, how do you even start a composition that has 35 characters in it throughout? Like, how do you balance that and get it all figured out? It helps to know compositional rules where you can balance things like that are very complicated. So if I went with like an iconic composition, I'm going to go over that on the Patreon because we're doing a compositional challenge at the moment. So the thing I'm going to run you through on that is my approach to the Diablo posters I did, which have a lot of stuff going on in them, and show you just what rules I use to balance things and how I use shapes to create areas of rest and whatnot where you won't be completely overwhelmed by the sheer amount of things happening. Because you can make a bad composition with 35 characters and have it just not read at all, where you don't even see it. But if you house characters and complex things within blocked out like color spaces, for instance, like everything's in this red hue, like you have one chunk of characters that are all in this red hue, so they don't all read as strictly like individual characters. It reads as this red block. And that makes it easier to process the whole image. And as long as that sits within a composition of, lines that, like if you're talking about like an iconic comp, then you can make all that work in harmony without being a mess. And that's really what a lot of composition kind of, or initial sketches and things ride on, is that idea that there's some underlying rules in place that allow me to do things that could be a little crazy, but balance them all. to the best of my ability. Like, it's not like I'm a perfect artist or that I nail it every time, but it's what I keep in mind when I'm doing that. How do I deal with copyright terms with selling fan art? I mean, there's all sorts of gray area now with work online. Like, back when I first started, there was no gray area. Like, if you did anything fan art, you were you could be fucked. There's the notorious example of that anime Simpsons thing that happened on DeviantArt. But I think companies have realized, with the exception of a few companies, they've realized that it's in their best interest to allow people to love what they do and just produce work. And if you're not directly like stealing from them, then there really isn't that much pushback anymore. I think everybody's kind of is like unspoken. It's sort of like the thing that happened at conventions where, like, yeah, you could say that all these people selling fan art are gonna get busted, whatever. And maybe back in the day that would have been the case. But it's sort of like, I would compare it to how hard people fought Napster back in the day versus now when music's just on YouTube and everywhere, like it's not like people really fight it anymore. It's similar to that. It's like we all have these shared experiences and games and things, and if you're part of the community and you love the work, it's more of like a celebration and being able to let these fans who make these things make some money from it and survive and live off that, and it doesn't really hurt that company. So it's like a gray area where, like, technically, yes, you could get in trouble, but people don't really care. Like, you can do a Final Fantasy IX fan remake of the game and not be totally screwed. Nintendo is definitely one of the ones where they have a harder time getting out of that, getting out of their own way with that sort of thing, because they're super protective. How does Colorado compare with living in the East Coast? It's great. Mild weather, way more mild than the East Coast. No bugs. Dry. I don't sweat in the summer, like, all the time. Like, I used to skateboard when I was a kid in the East Coast, and I was just drenched. I felt like I was just drenched constantly. And thank goodness for that, because, man, just being able to go out and not feel soaked, it rules in that respect. And there's good food out here. And, yeah. The Rocky Mountains are, like, just down the road. Some great hiking trails and things. And where we live, we have woods around us, thank goodness. There's a lot of places out here where I wouldn't want to live that have a lot of just, vacant areas and fields, and then cookie cutter houses everywhere. We live in, like, a pretty nice old neighborhood that has, unique homes and things, and so it's pretty cool. I'm very happy. Okay, this is the last question, then I'll hop off. Inking over pencils question. Do you intentionally leave a layer below your inking rough to make inks feel more spontaneous? I'm never sure how far to take pencils before inking. That definitely is something that I play with. Like, that's kind of what I'm doing right now. Like, a lot of times what I would do is I would completely redo the inks that you're looking at. And instead of doing that in this process, I'm just directly painting on top of it because I want a lot of that roughness of the inks to show through in the final. Like, I've heard that multiple times from people with my work where, like, my wife will say this too. It's like, oh, I really like that stage of what you're doing. And I don't think it's impossible for me to carry over the energy from that stage into the final. I just have to find a smart way of doing it. So I do think there's a certain charm in inking over your pencils and letting it still feel, a little rough around the edges. Like, I do think that that's good. It adds a little, like, visual interest and noise to it. It's sort of like I've mentioned this, like like how interesting it is that a post will go more viral if you just show, like I would say this, like what I meant to say. If all you saw was me painting like I just painted for the past hour and a half or whatever, like if you just saw me, or 2 hours actually, if you just saw me do that and you just see this little stylus moving around on the screen, it's not that interesting to watch. Like that video wouldn't get very many views if I put, like, let's say I put that up on TikTok of just like a whatever thing of me painting this, but you don't see my hand and you don't see me. That wouldn't really get that much attention. But if I had a camera over my shoulder and I was working on the tablet even, doing the same exact thing, that video would get way more interest. It's sort of like how you see those posts go viral where they leave like a pen or pencil like on the sketchbook next to their drawing, like just something saying like, I'm a real human being and this is rough and, you know, it's natural. Like I don't know what that is, but that connection to reality, it just settles people or something, or makes them feel comfortable, or they just like it. It has a certain feeling to it. Like it gets way more interest. And I think you get that same kind of result by leaving that roughness in your work. It's similar. It's a similar idea to that, at least. Well, anyway, yeah, I'll be back here next Thursday. Thanks for hanging out. I appreciate all the questions. Hope you all have a good night, and I'll talk to you next week. Or if you're a member of the Patreon, I'll be posting stuff before then, and I'll be doing that compositional video. So you can look forward to that and check it out.